take out hiking is something that I do often. And we'll have it with maybe some wraps or bread rolls and a cup of coffee. If you have a light soup like a chicken veg soup or just a veggie soup, it's enough to give you the nutrients that you need but not overfill you, so you can continue on hiking without having to hike on a full belly. Soups at night time at camp are just delicious, especially when you first get into camp and it's not quite dinner time, but you really want to have something to eat. With that cuppa, soups are just perfect for that. If it's cold and it's wet, there's nothing better than sitting in the tent having a soup, warming that belly. In my book, Feed the Hike, I have a whole chapter on homemade soups, and there's quite a few recipes in there, and we will later on in this episode, I'll do a couple of recipes for you. One will be just a pumpkin soup that I like to do often. Another one is a chicken noodle and veggie soup, which is also one of my favorites. So if you're enjoying the series so far, that's great. And all you new people to the channel, hi and welcome. It's lovely that you've come on board. Don't forget to click that like button and press subscribe, so that I know that you're out there and you're watching and you're enjoying the series. If you have a favourite soup recipe that you like to have while you're hiking, while you're out on the trail, pop it in below and share it with everybody else. It's always good to have new recipes to try. Now, sometimes I take packet soups that you buy from the shop, and that's okay. They don't have as much nutrition in them as obviously as homemade soups. You can't beat a good old homemade soup. But when we're hiking in Europe, of course, we can't take homemade soups. So we go to the supermarket and we'll find the packet soups, and they're quite lightweight, small, don't take up much room, but you can get a good meal out of them. Another thing I like to do with soups as well is sometimes I would use a bit of soup to put into my damper mix, my bread mix, and that just adds a different flavour to my bread mix. Like if I've got a pumpkin soup, I will pop some in my bread mix and have pumpkin bread. If you want any recipes or you haven't seen the damper episode, I'll put a link in below, and check out our dampers episode. Another good thing to do with soups as well is if you've got rice, pasta, couscous or anything, even mashed potato, you can pop a bit of that soup into that mix as well, and it just gives you more flavour for your meal, makes it just that little bit yummier. So I always use butternut pumpkin, it's a little bit sweeter, I really like it. With this recipe, there's a few ways you can do it, and it just depends what mood I'm into, how I do it. Get your butternut pumpkin, or if you have a preferred pumpkin, use that, doesn't really matter. Chop it up and cook it, either roast it in the oven or put it in a pot and cook it with some leek and garlic and salt, and if you want to add a few extra veggies to it, go for it. This is your pumpkin soup, but usually if you want to make it simple, leek, garlic and salt and a bit of pepper works well. So once it's all cooked, get a potato masher and just mash it all up. Now spread it out onto your dehydrating tray. Put it in your dehydrator at around 70, and dehydrate it for, it can take anywhere up to 12 hours. You'll know when it's dehydrated because it'll look like dried up crackle. Once it's cooled off, let it cool naturally. Don't put it in the fridge to cool. This will just create moisture. Put it in a blender. And you can add a little bit of milk powder if you like, coconut milk powder if you choose, if you want it a little bit creamier. Blend it up into a fine powder. Now the reason I do that is because when I rehydrate that at camp, it will come back a lot smoother. You could also then, once you put it in your little Ziploc bag, you can add some dehydrated parsley or dehydrated coriander or anything like that that you would choose. At camp, all you have to do then is cover it with water and rehydrate. It's as simple as that. So in my book Feed the Hike, I have a chapter 9 is a soup section, and there's a few different types of soups in here that are quite delicious. Get creative with your soups. Even a minestrone soup is always really nice out there on the trail. You've got pumpkin curry soup, which is really, really yummy, adding just that little bit of different flavour to a normal soup. So a potato and leek soup is another really yummy one. You can either roast it in the oven or cook it on the stove. Just chop up roughly some potatoes and some leek, a bit of garlic, a bit of salt. You can even put some coriander in there as well. Cook it up, mash it up once it's cooked, spread it out onto your dehydrating sheets and dehydrate it. Once it's dehydrated and it's cooled off naturally, put it in the blender, blend it up into a fine powder. You can then add some milk powder or coconut milk powder, whatever you prefer to it, and maybe even a little bit of stock powder just to give it just that little bit more of a oomph with the salts. And there you have another yummy soup to take on the trail. And most of these soups really don't weigh much. They don't take up much room in your pack for those who are worried about weight. And they can make a really hearty meal, especially if you add them to your pasta, your rice, or anything else. So let's put together a soup. This one's a veggie soup. You'll find this one in my book, Feed the Hike. There is one ingredient missing from this compared to the one in the book, and that is the corn. That is because I have no corn dehydrated at the moment in my cupboard, but I've replaced it with some spaghetti. So sometimes I do chuck in spaghetti. This is the bird's nest spaghetti. I break it up. It literally takes a minute to cook. And that is the other good thing about making your own soups. They only take a minute to cook if everything is cut up really fine. I always grate my veggies so they really take no time at all to rehydrate. So what have we got in our soup today? We have the pasta, the angel hair pasta or bird's nest pasta. I have some leek, some mushrooms, and here is some grated sweet potato. We have some capsicum, zucchini, and asparagus. And this is the last of what I've got left from It's All About the Greens. So I think I'm gonna have to be dehydrating some more asparagus and zucchini. If you haven't seen that episode yet, I'll put the link below. And here we have some chicken stock and some dehydrated garlic powder. So basically all you do is put this all in a bag and that's it. Too easy. It can all go in at once because everything will rehydrate at the same amount of time. Can she do this without making a mess? It'll be a first. Woohoo! All those mushrooms smell really good. Seriously yummy. Ooh, waste not. Don't forget to label it. So we'll weigh this for those who need to know. $31 grams, not bad. 31 grams for a meal. And trust me, this will really make you feel good at lunchtime.